Now, a colleague of mine, Dr. Bill Hersey, a former scientist at the EPA, and several others, including Zhang, did an analysis to quantify where, at what level, what dose the IQ would be lowered. Hitherto, we've only talked about concentration. Now we're turning to dose. This is a picture on the left-hand side. You see Zhang. There's me, Chris Neurath, our senior science director, and Bill Hersey, a former senior scientist at the EPA who specialized in risk assessment. So he took his specialty and applied it to Zhang's data. And without going into the technique here, look at the red arrow. That red arrow indicates the level, based upon this study, at which IQ is lowered by 5 IQ points. So if we look at the red arrow, this is saying 1.4 milligrams per day in this study lowered the IQ by 5 IQ points in this study. A dose of 1.4 milligrams per day lowers IQ in the Zhang study by 5 IQ points. Now, again, relating this to New Zealand, here is the estimated dietary fluoride intake for New Zealand, a study prepared for the Ministry of Health by these authors. And what you see is that for 5 to 6-year-olds and 7 to 10-year-old children, their dietary intake from water, from fluoridated water, is 0.84 to 0.99 milligrams per day. So we're worried about 1.4 milligrams. They're getting it from fluoridated, half of it, at least half of it, from fluoridated water. And the same study, this is in red, is the level that they can get from toothpaste, fluoridated toothpaste. Between the two of them, you can see that many children in New Zealand would exceed this 1.4 milligrams per day, which would lower IQ by 5 IQ points, based upon that Zhang study. Now I wanted to explain why a loss of 5 IQ points is so serious at the population level. For some individuals, it will be very serious at the individual level. If you're trying to get into a university or trying to get the top job somewhere, those 5 IQ points could make all the difference. But it's the devastating impact of what we're finding here is what it does to the whole population. So this diagram here shows a normal distribution of IQ, this so-called bell-shaped curve. This applies to any human trait. This is a very rough curve, but it gives you the general idea. Basically, most people, according to this curve, would cluster around an average IQ. Most people in your population would cluster around an average IQ of 100 IQ points. But look at the two tails. That green area on the right is the fraction of the total where you have very bright children. These are children with an IQ above 130. As you go further and further to the right, you're getting into the genius level. That's the fraction of those children. And over on the left, the magenta area is the fraction of the children who are intellectually impaired, an IQ of less than 80. And here is the definition to avoid saying the wrong things. Quote, an IQ of 70 is a level of intellectual impairment at the threshold of warranting institutionalization or possibly, under current New Zealand disability policy, intensively supported non-institutional living. Now, if we were to shift the IQ of the whole population down by 5, and unfortunately this is what water fluoridation poses, you're doing something to the whole population. You are exposing the whole population to a toxic substance. You're exposing the whole population to probably a neurotoxic substance when you put fluoride in the water. Well, if we shifted that curve over, the average would go from 100 to 95. And quite frankly, a parent would not notice the difference between two children, two siblings, one with an IQ of 100, one with 95, nor would a school teacher. You'd have to do tests to tease that out. But look what happens to the two tails of the curve. you literally halve the number of very bright children. That blue shaded area here is the fraction now which are very bright, and you see that the area from previously has gone down. And over on the left-hand side, you'll see that the fraction that is intellectually impaired has gone up. Now that has huge ramifications for any modern industrialized society fighting for the global economy to make things go. To halve the number of very bright, the number of geniuses in your society, obviously has serious ramifications on the economic level, and increasing the number of mentally handicapped children that need intellectually impaired children obviously has huge economic costs and social costs for your country. And if you have any idea that a substance out there in commerce is doing this, you quickly get it out of the marketplace. We took lead out of paint. We took lead out of gasoline because this is what we eventually found that lead was doing. But in our case, in the case of fluoridation, this is something that we're deliberately doing. We're deliberately adding this to the water supply. So we don't have to lobby the oil industry or the gasoline industry or the lead industry. We simply have to stop adding this fluoride to the drinking water.